All right, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for joining us here this morning. You are at Connecticut's Affordable Housing Conference. The theme of our conference this year is Roadmap to Recovery. We have a really great set of sessions scheduled over the next 3 days. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kylie Gosselin. I'm the Executive Director of the Partnership for Strong Communities. The Partnership for Strong Communities, for those of you who don't know us, is dedicated to ensuring that everyone in Connecticut has a safe, stable home that is affordable to them and an equitable community of their choice. We lead advocacy, we advance original research, and we bring together coalitions needed to drive systemic change toward our shared vision. We often engage partners in collective impact. Many of you joining today may be part of 2 of our collective impact campaigns, which I'll mention in a moment. And through those collective impact efforts, we work to develop consensus legislative agendas and work to engage the civic and political support to drive policy change. As I mentioned, the partnership serves as the backbone, support, and convener of 2 collective impact efforts. One is the Reaching Home campaign, and the other is our Home Connecticut campaign. Reaching Home is a campaign that was created more than 15 years ago to prevent and end homelessness in Connecticut. And with more than 200 partners representing a variety of systems and actors, Reaching Home is working to make homelessness rare, brief, and one time. And many of you here today are probably familiar with our Home Connecticut campaign, which has been around, I think, since 2006. And it convenes diverse stakeholders, including housing advocates, nonprofit and business leaders, lenders, housing developers, and other tenant advocates who work together to ensure that a range of affordable housing options are available across our state. Thank you to those of you joining today who have been part of that effort through the years. So we're here today to talk about affordable housing, really for the next 3 days, and why it's important here in Connecticut. I think the pandemic, as many of you know, has only highlighted Connecticut's extreme shortage of units for our state's low and moderate income households. At this point in time, hundreds of thousands of Connecticut households are still rent burdened or extremely rent burdened. And those categories mean folks that are spending more than 30% or 50% respectively of their income on housing costs. And while new resources have allowed us to decompress shelters and reduce homelessness with more housing subsidies, the hot housing market and increasing rents mean that we have more tenants with subsidies than the state has available rental units at this time. Also, as many of you know, and another topic we'll be talking quite a bit about during the conference, is that Connecticut is one of the most segregated states in the country, both in terms of race and in income. Local zoning hurdles continue this status unless we are willing to make different choices. And we at the partnership are committed to understanding and working to address the long-standing race-based barriers and policy that have created many of these inequities in housing policies and resource allocations across our state. Creating new affordable housing, as well as preserving our existing affordable housing stock, is a choice that benefits all of our neighborhoods, towns, businesses, and people, both at a humanitarian level and at an economic one. Creating and supporting more multifamily rental and affordable units means Connecticut can grow. According to our partners at the Connecticut Association of Home Builders and Remodelers, every dollar we spend on housing production yields another 4 in economic benefits to our state: jobs, taxes, and economic growth. But in order to grow effectively, we must think about the way we zone, develop, and fund housing. This will take changes at the local zoning level, rethinking the way we develop housing by advancing more truly mixed income properties and creating new financial vehicles to develop in a more progressive way. This includes supporting our cities, who are already supporting more than 2/3 of the state's affordable housing stock with new types of development tools and less restrictive homeownership and business supports. So over the next 3 days, we'll explore these and a variety of other topics, all surrounding how we can drive affordable housing policy and programmatic changes that support our state's recovery and close the gap on our housing needs. We have an exciting lineup in store, as I mentioned. The next session is the 3rd session of the partnership's annual I-Forum series. I-Forums are a series of educational events that the partnership holds typically quarterly throughout the year. In this one, we will explore the ripple effect that evictions have had throughout individuals' lives and their communities, a timely topic as the eviction moratorium comes to an end here in Connecticut. We are also featuring sessions led by Connecticut Fair Housing and Impediments to Fair Housing. You'll also hear today a spotlight on the PSC Research Associates program we host, which engages Black, Indigenous, and people of color freelance writers and researchers to produce policy and research materials on affordable housing and homelessness in Connecticut. And we'll also include a session on the new Tenants' Rights to Legal Counsel program, as well as an informative session on how to access and use data tools for housing preservation strategies. Tomorrow, we'll be welcoming Diane Yantel from the National Low Income Housing Coalition as a keynote speaker, and we have a full day of sessions covering everything from capacity building in the community development sector to development of mixed income, mixed use, and historic structures, including challenges overcome during the pandemic. We'll also host a discussion with members of the Housing and Planning and Development Committees who will explore topics including bonding, housing development, zoning, and COVID-related housing concerns. And then finally on Wednesday, we'll hear opening remarks from Nanthani Natarajan from CHAFA, followed by a keynote address from Richard Rothstein, author of The Color of Law. The Color of Law is a forgotten history of how our government segregated America. Please note that there's a separate link to access that event. We'll be reminding you of that frequently throughout the conference, but that is a separate link, and it is in the description in the Zoom platform, as well as available on our website. If you go to pschousing.org and then click on the conference CAHC 2021 link, you'll be able to get to that. We will close out the conference on Wednesday with a full day of sessions on the QAP, the Qualified Allocation Plan put out by CHAFA, more on zoning, energy efficiency, accessory dwelling units, as well as equitable homeownership. Finally, I want to thank our sponsors who've made this conference possible. It was our goal, as it is with iForms, to keep much of our education content free and available to everybody. And we thank those who are donating to make that feasible. So thanks to our leading sponsors and our critical partners, the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority and Webster Bank. We're grateful to our collaborating sponsors, the Connecticut Department of Housing and Rockport Mortgage and Webster Bank. I'm not keeping up with the slides. We have an armful of supporting sponsors that have helped make this conference happen, including Beacon Communities, Capital for Change, Corporation for Supportive Housing, Elm City Communities, Fairfield County's Community Foundation. Next slide. And then Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston, JHM Group, LISC, National Equity Fund, and Trinity Financial. And finally, a big shout out to Melville Charitable Trust, who funds all the partnerships work and has been a continuing sponsor of our organization since our founding. Thank you to all our session sponsors, and a special thanks to Webster Bank and People's Bank for sponsoring this kickoff today. And finally, thanks to all of our conference advertisers and supporters. If you shared contact information with us when you registered, you received a copy of our full conference agenda, which includes information on our sponsors and is available on our website. So thank you to all of you for joining. Unfortunately, we're having some challenges connecting the commissioner. We're working on that. So we're going to reverse the order this morning. We're going to have the commissioner speak before the governor, but we're going to flip that a little bit. So the governor has shared some remarks with us that I will ask Don to share with you now. Thank you.
Hey everybody, I hope Sailor did a good job. The Affordable Housing Conference, Roadmap to Recovery. Let me tell you why affordable housing is so important to me. You know, one, on a human level, especially this last couple of years with COVID, you really realize we got to take care of everybody. Nobody can be out there in the street. People deserve a home. It keeps them safe and it keeps the rest of us safe. Two, affordable housing in terms of what it means, in terms of it's not just a roof over your head, it's a home. It gives people an opportunity to start in life. You don't get a fair start in life without that roof over your head. I'd like to tell you, thirdly, what I love about affordable housing is bringing our downtowns back to life so people who grew up in town can afford to live in the town. So the firemen, the teachers, and cops, they can all afford to be there as well. And finally, I can tell you, as a business person, every time I'm trying to recruit a company here, they say, tell me about housing. Can the workers afford to be here? This is all the pieces of the puzzle that affordable housing represent for me, why it's really key, and that's why I'm really glad this conference is making a difference. It is our roadmap to recovery. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks, everyone. We're still working to get the commissioner connected, so in the meantime, we'll just ask you all to pause, grab another cup of coffee, and come back to us in the next couple minutes. If we are unable to get her on, we'll try to reschedule another day during the conference. Our next session, just to remind all of you, is our I-Forum, which starts at 10 o'clock. For those of you who've registered for today, you're eligible for that. That session focuses on evictions and will feature some great speakers talking really about the full spectrum of eviction and how it affects individuals and communities. And we felt that it was a good time to share that and present a really full conversation about what eviction means as we are in challenging times for folks. All right, well, unfortunately, folks, we are having some technical challenges with the commissioner that continue. We apologize for that, apologize to her and to all of you that we aren't able to share her remarks with you this morning. We're gonna work to reschedule her for one of the next 2 days of the session so that you can hear from her directly. I know she's eager to speak with you all. I'm gonna move to share with you sort of our final wrap-up information from this, noting that we have our next session starting shortly. So wanted to share with you that our final I-Forum of the year is Thursday, December 16th. This is going to be focusing on pathways to achieving racial equity in housing and homelessness. And our collective impact and equity manager, Carleen Charmless, has been working hard to develop a really amazing list of speakers that are going to be participating in that. We'll be talking about dismantling systemic racism in the housing and homelessness system, how that requires applying a racial equity lens at all levels, including the organizational, policy, advocacy, research, and community engagement levels. Partners continually ask us, how do I get started? How do my agency and my community partners work together to central racial equity in our work, and what does that mean? So this I-Forum will explore that, as well as the policies and practices that have created inequities in housing and communities of color, and it will highlight some best practices to support organizations in learning how to create a culture that embeds racial equity at its center. As part of that, we're going to be welcoming Peggy Bailey, who is a senior advisor to the HUD Secretary, Rental Assistance Office of the Secretary at HUD, Amanda Indira, who's the CEO of Funders Together, and Susan Thomas, president of the Melville Charitable Trust, as well as some other speakers that we'll be announcing later. And then finally, as Connecticut vaccination rates continue to grow and we continue to return to our in-person events, we want to let you know that the Lyceum has reopened. For those of you who aren't familiar, the partnership is housed in a building that was lovingly renovated by the Melville Charitable Trust many years ago, and includes a beautiful historic conference center and theater upstairs. So if you've been there and you're looking for space, again, to host either get-togethers, receptions, as well as presentations or trainings, we wanted to let you know that it's now open again. You can reach out to Jane Peters, our administrative director, who does a wonderful job of managing that. And then finally, before we close today, I want to give a shout out and a thanks to our staff at the partnership for helping to make this happen, especially Chelsea Ross, who's the wizard behind the scene, making all of the sessions and magic happen. Support from Kylie Pratt and Sean Gio, who many of you know. And thanks also to my right hand in the effort to find sponsors, Jane Peters. We appreciate all of your work. So with that, we'll close out this opening session. We hope that you join us for the I-Forum starting at 10. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.